You think you know Bob Marley, the peaceful prophet, the calm messenger of love and unity, the man who never raised his voice, never lost his temper, never let anger rule his heart. But what happened in a quiet Italian restaurant in New York on March 22nd, 1979, would shatter that image forever. Because when Bob Marley finally lost his temper, the entire restaurant would witness something they never thought possible. A saint becoming human. And sometimes that's the most powerful transformation of all. If you love discovering the untold stories behind music history's most incredible moments, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell because we uncover the hidden gems that shaped the legends we know today. Mama Leone's Restaurant, Little Italy, New York City, 8:15 p.m. Bob Marley sat at a corner table with his wife Rita and his longtime friend and guitarist Al Anderson. They had just finished a recording session at Electric Lady Studios and decided to grab a quiet dinner before heading back to their hotel. Bob loved this restaurant because it reminded him of the family-style meals he enjoyed in Jamaica, where everyone sat together and shared stories over good food. The restaurant was bustling with the dinner crowd, families celebrating, couples on dates, business associates closing deals. Bob appreciated the warm atmosphere, the smell of garlic and tomatoes, the sound of laughter mixing with quiet conversation. Their server for the evening was Maria Santos, a 23-year-old Puerto Rican woman who had been working at Mama Leone's for 2 years while studying nursing at night school. Maria was saving every penny to pay for her education, working double shifts when possible, sending money home to her mother in San Juan. She was polite, efficient, and had quickly become one of the restaurant's most reliable servers. Maria had recognized Bob immediately when he walked in, but she maintained her professionalism, treating him like any other customer. She'd taken their order with a shy smile, clearly excited but respectful. Bob had appreciated her discretion and left a generous tip on his credit card authorization when she first brought their drinks. At table 7, across the dining room, sat Richard Whitmore, a 45-year-old investment banker from Manhattan's Upper East Side. Whitmore was dining with a potential client, trying to close a deal that would net him a substantial commission. He was the kind of man who measured his worth by his ability to intimidate others, who believed that wealth gave him the right to treat service workers as beneath him. Whitmore had been drinking heavily, 3 martinis while waiting for his companion, 2 glasses of wine with dinner. His voice was getting louder, his behavior more obnoxious. Other diners were beginning to notice his increasingly belligerent attitude. Maria approached table 7 to check on their meal, as she did with all her tables. "How is everything this evening? Can I get you anything else?" Whitmore looked up at her with obvious disdain. "Finally, where the hell have you been? I've been waiting 10 minutes for more bread." Maria's face flushed. "I'm sorry, sir. I was serving other tables. I'll get you bread right away." "You'll get it now," Whitmore said, his voice carrying across the restaurant. "And while you're at it, this wine is garbage. Bring me something that costs more than $5. Bob looked up from his conversation with Rita. Something in Whitmore's tone had caught his attention. The hostility, the condescension. It was the sound of someone using power to hurt others. "Of course, sir," Maria replied quietly. "Would you like to see the wine list again?" "I don't want to see anything from you except results," Whitmore snapped. "And next time I need something, you better move faster. I didn't come here to wait around for some—" He paused, looking at Maria's olive skin and hearing her slight accent. "Some illegal to figure out how to do her job." The restaurant went noticeably quieter. Other diners stopped their conversations, uncomfortable with Whitmore's obvious racism. Maria's eyes filled with tears, but she maintained her composure. "I'll get your bread and wine right away, sir." Bob's jaw tightened. He'd dealt with racism his entire life, but watching it directed at a young woman just trying to make a living struck a nerve he didn't know he still had. "And make sure it's actually good wine this time," Whitmore continued, emboldened by the alcohol and his perceived position of power. "I know your people aren't used to quality, but try to keep up." That's when Bob Marley stood up. Rita reached for his hand. "Bob, don't." But Bob was already walking across the restaurant, his usual calm demeanor replaced by something his friends had never seen before. His hands were clenched into fists, his jaw set in determination, his eyes blazing with anger. "Excuse me," Bob said as he approached table 7. His Jamaican accent was thicker than usual, a sign to those who knew him that he was struggling to control his emotions. Whitmore looked up, annoyed by the interruption. "What do you want?" "I want you to apologize to that young lady." Whitmore laughed mockingly. "Who the hell are you? And why would I apologize to the help?" Bob's voice rose, carrying clearly across the now silent restaurant. "Because she's a human being trying to do her job, and you're treating her like garbage." "Listen, pal," Whitmore said, standing up to face Bob. "I don't know who you think you are, but this is none of your business." Bob stepped closer, his peaceful facade completely gone. "It's my business when I see a coward picking on someone who can't fight back." The entire restaurant was watching now. Maria had stopped in the middle of the dining room, holding a basket of bread, tears streaming down her face as she watched this stranger defend her. "Coward?" Whitmore's face reddened. "You want to call me a coward? You foreign piece of trash? You don't even belong in this country." That was the moment Bob Marley lost control completely. "Foreign piece of trash?" Bob's voice exploded through the restaurant like thunder. "Foreign piece of trash?" Rita stood up at their table, Al Anderson close behind her, both shocked by Bob's outburst. "You want to talk about foreign?" Bob continued, his voice shaking with rage. "My ancestors were brought to the Caribbean in chains. That young woman's family has been in this hemisphere longer than yours has probably been out of Europe. And you're calling U.S. foreign?" Other diners were staring in amazement. This was Bob Marley, the prophet of peace, screaming at a customer in an Italian restaurant. "But you know what the real difference is?" Bob stepped even closer to Whitmore, who was now backing away slightly. "She works for her money. She studies at night, sends money to her family, treats people with respect. You sit in your office moving other people's money around and think that makes you better than everyone else." Bob pointed his finger directly at Whitmore's chest. "Let me tell you something. You racist piece of garbage. That woman has more class in her little finger than you have in your entire body." The restaurant was dead silent except for Bob's voice, which had reached a level none of his friends had ever heard before. "And another thing," Bob continued, his accent getting thicker as his anger intensified. "You think because you wear an expensive suit and drink expensive wine that you're sophisticated? You know what sophisticated is? Sophisticated is treating every human being with dignity. Sophisticated is recognizing that we're all struggling. We're all trying to make it in this world." Whitmore tried to interject. "Now listen here." "No, you listen!" Bob roared, cutting him off. "I've spent my whole life preaching love and unity and peace. But you know what I can't stand? I can't stand bullies. I can't stand cowards who pick on working people because they think their money makes them powerful." Bob's voice cracked with emotion. "That young woman is working 2 jobs to pay for nursing school. She's trying to heal people, to help people, to make the world better. And you sit here like some kind of king, treating her like she's beneath you." Maria was crying openly now, overwhelmed by having a stranger, even a famous one, defend her so passionately. "You want to know what makes someone important?" Bob continued, his voice still raised but starting to crack with emotion. "It's not how much money you have. It's not what car you drive or what neighborhood you live in. It's how you treat people who can't do anything for you. And by that measure, you're the poorest man in this room." Whitmore looked around the restaurant and realized that every single person was staring at him with disgust. His business companion had slunk down in his seat, clearly embarrassed to be associated with him. I was just, Whitmore stammered. Just what? Bob interrupted, his voice still angry but now containing a note of pain. Just being a racist? Just being cruel? Just showing everyone in this room what kind of person you really are? Bob paused, taking a deep breath. Some of his famous composure was beginning to return, but the anger was still there, simmering just below the surface. You know what breaks my heart? Bob said, his voice quieter now but still intense. It's that there are thousands of people like you in the world. People who think that putting others down lifts them up. People who mistake cruelty for strength. He looked directly at Maria. And there are thousands of beautiful, hard-working people like this young lady who have to deal with people like you every single day. Bob turned back to Whitmore. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to apologize to Maria. You're going to leave her a tip that reflects how sorry you are for your behavior. And then you're going to leave this restaurant and think about what kind of person you want to be. Whitmore looked around the room again. Every eye was on him. Even his business companion was shaking his head in disappointment. And if you don't, Bob continued, his voice rising again, then you and I are going to have a very different kind of conversation. Because I may be a man of peace, but I'm also a man who protects people who can't protect themselves. The threat in Bob's voice was unmistakable. This wasn't the gentle reggae musician anymore. This was a man who had grown up in the ghettos of Kingston, who had faced down armed gunmen, who knew how to fight when fighting was necessary. Whitmore seemed to deflate. All his bluster, all his arrogance evaporated under the weight of Bob's righteous anger and the disapproving stares of everyone around him. I'm sorry, Whitmore said quietly. Not to me, Bob replied firmly. To her. Whitmore walked over to where Maria was standing, still holding the basket of bread, still crying. Miss, I apologize. My behavior was inexcusable, I'm sorry. Maria nodded, unable to speak. Whitmore reached into his wallet and pulled out several $100 bills, placing them on the table. Please accept this as an apology. The manager of the restaurant, who had been watching the entire scene unfold, approached Bob. Mr. Marley, I'm so sorry about this incident. Your meal is on the house tonight. Bob shook his head. No, thank you. I pay for what I eat, but I want you to make sure Maria gets the rest of the night off, with pay. And I want you to know that she handled this situation with more grace than I did. As Whitmore gathered his things to leave, Bob called out to him one more time. Mr. Whitmore? The man turned around. That young woman you were so cruel to? She's going to be a nurse. She's going to spend her career healing people, saving lives, making the world better. I hope someday you find something that meaningful to do with your life. After Whitmore left, the restaurant slowly returned to its normal volume. But the energy had changed. People were looking at Bob with a mixture of awe and surprise. They had witnessed something unprecedented. The man of peace showing his human side, his protective side, his angry side. Bob returned to his table where Rita and Al were waiting. I've never seen you like that, Rita said quietly. Bob sat down heavily, running his hands over his face. I couldn't just sit there and watch. That could have been you. That could have been any of us. Al nodded. Man, I didn't know you had that in you. Everyone has that in them, Bob replied, his voice returning to its normal calm tone. Even people who preach peace. Sometimes love means standing up to hate, even if it means raising your voice. Maria approached their table tentatively. Mr. Marley, I wanted to thank you. No one has ever stood up for me like that. Bob stood and took her hands gently. Maria, you handled that situation with dignity and strength. Don't let anyone make you feel small. You're going to be an amazing nurse. How did you know about nursing school? Bob smiled. I could tell by the way you took care of everyone in this room. That's not just a job for you. That's your calling. Maria began crying again, but these were tears of gratitude. I don't know how to thank you. Just keep being yourself, Bob said. Keep treating people with kindness. The world needs more people like you. As they left the restaurant that night, Bob was quiet, reflective. The burst of anger he'd experienced had surprised him as much as it had surprised everyone else. Do you regret it? Rita asked as they walked back to their hotel. Bob thought for a moment. No, I regret that it was necessary. But I don't regret standing up for someone who couldn't stand up for herself. He paused. You know, people think that being peaceful means being passive. But sometimes the most peaceful thing you can do is stop violence from happening. Sometimes love has to get loud. The story of Bob's outburst at Mama Leone's spread quickly through New York's music scene. People who had been there that night told their friends, who told their friends. Within days, it had become urban legend. But the story that mattered most was Maria's. She finished nursing school 2 years later, graduating with honors. She became a pediatric nurse, specializing in caring for children from low-income families. She often told her young patients about the night Bob Marley taught her that there were people in the world who would stand up for others, even when they didn't have to.